Welcome back, listeners, to another fascinating rendition of your favorite podcast in the universe. Hindsight is horrifying. This is Darth Jader here with her podcast partner,
Jason Mitchell.
And welcome back to another week of nonsense. We're so happy to have you listening with us again.
No guests this week, though.
You got to put up with your two favorite idiots. That's what's happening this week. Darth failed on booking, I guess, this week. So.
Well, we picked an easy movie. So.
You picked an easy movie.
Yeah, I picked an easy movie.
Let's put that out there. But, speaking of which, we are watching a movie that, and we'll get into this in a minute, a movie that I thought I had seen. It's so quoted and so well established in my childhood that I literally thought I had seen it. Then when I went to rewatch it, I realized I hadn't ever watched this movie all the way through.
Amazing.
So, and not even like a piecemeal where I had definitely watched Caddyshack all the way through, but maybe in parts. No, I've literally never watched this entire movie. I was genuinely confused when the wrestlers came out in the beginning. So, Jason, why don't you tell our listeners what we're watching this week?
I think the wrestler bit might have given it away to some people. We are watching the 1986 cult classic Highlander.
There can be only one.
Which is a movie that I have seen 100 million times. I saw it whenever I was a kid, and it left a lasting impression on me. Literally, I've actually got a scar because of this movie. Seriously.
Oh, God. Sorry.
Yeah.
I just got really distracted by that fat wrestler doing a strip-tease out of his robe.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
Yes, we are watching the epic opening scene that was supposed to be shot at an NHL hockey game, but unfortunately, the NHL decided that they didn't want to highlight the violence of hockey, which is exactly what the producers were trying to show.
Irony.
Yeah, exactly. So the opening scene of Highlander takes place at a wrestling match, which is very strange because
all the violence is fake.
Yeah, all the violence is completely fake. And maybe that's a statement. Maybe that's saying something.
Well, that's one thing that Josh and I noted because I actually watched this with Josh, who has not seen this movie all the way through either.
I can't believe this.
He's closer to your age, so that did surprise me too. But he's never seen it, having grown up overseas. But anyway, I was like, remember when wrestlers weren't required to have muscles? And Josh goes, yeah, back when they were just fat guys in spandex fake fighting each other.
Absolutely, yeah.
I had forgotten about those days.
It was a golden age.
I had maybe purposefully forgotten about those days because it wasn't Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in spandex. It's not the same, guys.
Yeah, if you ever want to see what wrestling was like in the 1980s, just go watch the Cyndi Lauper video for Goonies.
There you go.
Good enough. Because it's nothing but wrestlers, because they were a really big deal back then.
Yeah, they were huge. I mean, it's not like they're not a big wave of entertainment now, but wrestling
nowhere near the same thing.
Yeah, it was such a bigger thing back in the day.
So, for those of you who don't know, for those of you who have not seen this movie, Highlander is a romantic comedy about two friends who adopt a baby.
Starring Jennifer Aniston and Vince Vaughn.
Yeah. Now, Highlander is, of course, the story of a man, Connor Macleod, who was born in the Highlands of Scotland in the 15th century.
Yes.
I think, yeah. And he died, but that's not the end of the movie.
But did he?
Yeah. Because, of course, if you are an immortal and not a Highlander, I get so irritated when people say, oh, he's a Highlander. No, he's a Highlander because that's where he was from.
Yes, he's from the Highlands of Scotland.
If you are an immortal, surprise, surprise, you're immortal. And you can't die.
Unless someone chops your head off.
And I was explaining this to my 9-year-old son the other day because I said, oh, we need to watch Highlander.
I can see David taking this so literally.
Well, and he was like, well, what's it about? And I explained, well, you know, these people can't die unless you chop their head off. And he's like, well, if you blow them up, won't their head come off?
I made the same note. I was like, if your head can be chopped off and you can be killed, you're not immortal. I was so pissed about that.
They actually get into that in the TV series. They actually delve into the concept that if I blow you up and in the process your head is removed from your shoulders, that counts.
Yeah.
You know, or if I get, you know, a big Ma Deuce machine gun and just, you know, riddle you with bullets, eventually your head's going to come off. That's and then you're dead. So Connor Macleod is, of course, an immortal, and he is blessed with immortality, but he is cursed to fight other immortals until only 2 remain, and then they 2 will fight, and the winner will get a prize, which the writers
prize.
named The Prize.
So clever.
Where do they come up with this?
Oh, and I've got to interrupt you, Jason, because Jan Michael Vincent. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. Chris Lambert.
No, come on.
Jan Michael, in a world where Jan Michael Vincents are scarce. No, but seriously, Josh and I were joking about that. He was like, there just aren't enough Jan Michael Vincents. And I was like, okay, thanks, Forrest Gump. But the Highlander gets into a fight in a parking garage with the legendary. Do you know who that is, Jason?
I know he was the stunt coordinator for the movie.
He is, and he's the stunt coordinator. And you listeners, whether you've seen this movie or not, you have seen this gentleman in some way, shape, or form. His name is Peter Diamond, and he is one of the most legendary stunt performers, actors, directors. He was born in 1925, died in 2004. And the reason why I bring him up is because he will also come up. He actually came up during my research for an upcoming episode, but where we're going to feature the Princess Bride.
I was about to say Princess Bride?
Because he was the stunt coordinator along with another famous Olympian fencer. And Carrie Elways actually commits almost an entire chapter to talking about his fencing training for Princess Bride because the sword play was so important to Rob Reiner. So we'll talk about that in more detail because Carrie Elways, and yes, Jason, I'm actually on a first name basis with this celebrity.
Yeah, I know.
So we know this. But yeah, so Carrie, I've been rereading your book. I love you. And we're watching Peter Diamond, who you gave a shout out to in your book. And that is who Chris Lambert fights in the parking garage scene with the longswords amongst all the cars where they break a sprinkler and make some rain.
If you're Dr. Jonas Venture, it's Christopher Lambert.
Well,
the Venture Brothers fans
it.
will get that one. So this opening scene in the parking garage was filmed in England. So the crew's overseas. They're I guess scouting for locations, and Russell McKay and Panzer and Davis and all those guys. Evidently, they didn't realize that parking garages in England don't look like parking garages in America.
No, they don't.
So they actually filmed this entire parking garage sequence at a fruit market.
No,
and they had to make it look like a parking garage.
Oh my god!
And there's our first
beheading.
Yep, there's number 1. And of course, he chops his head off, and the sword embeds itself into a concrete pillar,
like it does.
Yeah.
I mean, what sword fight has that not happened to you? I mean, come on, it happens to me all the time.
I love this sequence because the first time you watch this, and you're like, "What the hell is happening?" He just cut the guy's head off, and now there's really, really poorly animated lightning effects.
No,
everywhere.
That's exactly what I was like, Josh, what the hell's happening? And he looks up, and he was sort of watching the movie with me, listeners, but he looks up from his game or book or whatever, and he goes, I think I remember this. The Highlander absorbs the power of whomever he kills. Yeah. If it's another Highlander or another immortal that he kills.
Thank you.
Let me correct myself. But yeah. He's got his white Reeboks on or whatever those are. They're very 80s.
I think they are Reeboks.
They must be. Yeah. If it's a white sneaker in the 80s, it has to be. But and this is one thing that just struck me. And I know that Tom Jane wasn't even on the scene in 1986. Not really that I'm aware of. But Chris Lambert gives me a very Tom Jane kind of vibe. They have very similar faces. And they're both blonde or blonde-ish. So I don't know. I was just like, that can't be Tom Jane. The first time I saw him was in 1999 in Deep Blue Sea. So
now Christopher Lambert, he's a good actor. He's been in a bunch of of other movies. In America, he's not known for anything other than Highlander.
No. Actually, the whole thing with Christopher Lambert, the role was originally offered to Kurt Russell.
Yeah.
And would you like to know who talked him out of said role, listeners? His then girlfriend, Goldie Hawn. So
thanks, Goldie. Kurt
Russell was almost the Highlander, but Christopher Lambert was his only American film credit was playing Tarzan in 1984, spectacularly named, according to Mental Floss, Greystoke, The Legend of Tarzan, Lord of the Apes.
Yeah.
Which
is a good movie, by the way.
But that leads into a lot of different aspects about Highlander, because when McKay first cast Christopher Lambert, he had no idea that Christopher Lambert was from Switzerland and that his English was incredibly limited, because in Tarzan, all he has to do is like grunt
Yeah,
like an ape.
yeah, he just spoke a few words.
Yeah, he didn't. And so that feeds into this whole concept of why Highlander's accent makes zero freaking sense.
Well, they actually they had to send him to a dialogue coach to teach him to have a non-specific accent.
I don't know. It's still all over. It's very much Dr. Richard Kimball in my head. It's still all over the place.
And they actually, because he kept slipping into something that sounded French, they wrote in the flashback sequence showing him living in France just to establish that he, at some point after living in Scotland, had lived in France, and it was their thinking was, well, that'll kind of explain why every once in a while he sounds sort of vaguely French.
It makes sense because, and they even wrote in that bit when the cops are first questioning him over the murder in the parking garage. They're like, you don't sound right, buddy. What's that accent? Or what? They can't figure out why he sounds so strange. But
where are you from, Nash?
Yeah, dude. But seriously though, this is actually a thing that has happened with more and more international stars in television and movies. Like Alexander Skarsgård talked about that when he was on True Blood, because he's Swedish and he is one of the few vampires on True Blood who doesn't have a southern accent.
Yeah.
So, and one of the things that they asked him about, he was like, yeah, well, my character's supposedly thousands and thousands of years old. He's like a 2,000-year-old vampire. So he's like, I would have roamed the world. And he has this very American neutral accent. It's not southern, northern. It's not really anything. And so that's why he decided to do that kind of a voice for himself on that show. Whereas Bill Compton sounds like he's from Savannah, Georgia, despite the fact that he was born in Louisiana. Yeah. So whenever you're dealing with actors who especially aren't from the area, trying to do an accent, let alone...
Well, I think there's a conscious decision at a certain point that we can really get hung up on the accents, or we can just do it. I actually, last night I watched... Rowan Atkinson is in a detective series, the
Blackadder.
Maigret, Maigret.
Okay,
and it's a French series. Follows a chief inspector in Paris in the 1950s, and I tuned in and I was actually wondering, like, what are the accents going to sound like?
Yeah,
and they're all British. Everyone in it is just straight up British. They don't even attempt.
And sometimes that's easier, like the Kevin Costner Robin Hood Prince of Thieves.
Yeah,
everyone is English except for Kevin Costner,
right?
Who's obviously Robin Hood.
Yeah.
So and that's where Carrie, once again, I'm just going to shout out to you all day. In Carrie Elwes' Robin Hood, guess what? I'm the Robin Hood that can speak with an English accent.
Well, I mean, and. It is interesting because
unlike other Robin Hoods.
Well, Morgan Freeman, did he have an accent in Robin Hood? I don't remember.
Yes, he did actually. He did? Infidel, he did.
That's right.
He did. He had a Middle Eastern accent.
But so in a movie like this, I can kind of appreciate the fact that they sort of they did try. They sent him to a dialogue coach. That's fine.
They made an honest effort.
But at the end of the day,
like
it's
you
Highlander.
said, they had to make a conscious decision, and plus, it is Highlander, who's going home and weeping over this,
right.
Except for Nick Offerman, which I found out in my mental floss research. This is one of Nick Offerman's favorite movies of all time.
It's one of I can totally see that. And this movie was a complete failure at the box office, but there are 4 sequels.
Yes, because and mental floss, I'm not going to start shouting out to you either, because whoever wrote this article, shout out to you. It says, despite being beheaded by Pretty in Pink during its opening weekend of March of 1986, Highlander has managed to spawn a near immortal franchise consisting of 4 sequels, 3 television series, novels, comics, and a robust collectible sword collection.
No, it's funny because you literally cannot kill this franchise, and
it's immortal.
And it's interesting because the movie, I mean, Highlander 1986, which we're watching today, one of my all-time favorite movies, and I was so excited to get my hands on a copy of the sequel, Highlander 2.
Mm-hmm.
And when I tell people it's possibly the worst movie ever made, I am serious when I mean Plan 9 from Outer Space is probably a better movie than Highlander 2.
And I've never heard of Plan 9 from Outer Space, so I'm a little concerned.
Yeah, it's Ed Wood's, classic. It's sort of set the standard for the worst movie ever made. And I genuinely think Highlander 2 is worse. It is so bad. It's painful to watch. It's so bad.
Well, and according to Mental Floss, the reason why you can, really hate on the sequel is because of the country of Argentina where they shot. And according to fans.
I didn't know that.
Part of what happened is, as far as the fans are concerned, basically Bill Panzer, according to Bill Panzer, the idea of the Immortals results from fans constantly asking about the origins of it since the 1986 original. Mm-hmm. So they felt, the producers and the director, they felt obligated to go back and really figure out what the origin story was. But the bigger thing was the country of Argentina where they shot. Because the production was underway when the country began to experience significant inflation, leading to cost overruns, which led skittish insurers to interfere, and filming was edited to a point where the movie made almost zero sense.
Yeah, literally the movie does not make sense.
And not that I've seen it, because apparently I've not seen any of this. I remember skitters of it from I remember him as the Highlander in Scotland. I remember him riding the horse. I remember just little snippets of this movie, but honest to God, I've never watched this movie all the way through and not seen enough of any significant chunks of it to have pieced it together.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's so bizarre because Highlander 2 is as different a movie as you could possibly imagine. I mean, it's a science fiction movie set in the future with aliens flying around on like skateboards. Don't even remember. It's so bad. It's so terrible.
I don't know anything about this, so I can't pitch in right here.
And it actually deals with the whole exploding a Highlander thing, because in Highlander 2, Connor Macleod begins and he's very, very old. And he is in a huge explosion, and he walks out of the explosion, and he's back to being the Connor Macleod that we know. And also Sean Connery's back somehow.
That was going to be my question, because Sean Connery, oh man, he apparently only filmed for 7 days on the first Highlander.
Got $1 million for 7 days of work.
Jesus, that's... well, that makes me think, shout out to Mel Gibson from our Lethal Weapon episode. He was on SNL, Mel Gibson, hosting way back in the day. I want to say the early 90s. And it was back when he still had his Australian accent. Shout out to all of our Australians out there. We love you so dearly.
Yes.
But Mel was hosting SNL, and he said, here's the thing about hosting on SNL. I find that television is a lot more effort with far fewer reward. Whereas movie, few effort, much bigger reward. That was like his whole opening speech, is that he was talking about how much more money you earn in movies, especially when you become a big deal. And Sean Connery, he shot for 7 days, and then he was such a big deal and such an internationally renowned movie star by the second Highlander that he put it in his rider, in his contract, that there would be no James Bond talk at all. No, anyone who spoke about James Bond to him was subject to be fired.
Yeah, he was going through that whole phase where he was trying to do his own Bond franchise at the time. Yeah, there is a weird Bond film that came out in the 80s starring Sean Connery. Never Say Never Again. And Never Say Never Again is completely detached from the Eon, Cubby Broccoli, James Bond franchise. Mm-hmm. And Sean Connery wanted to make his own Bond film, and it was going to be the biggest Bond film ever. And instead he made a basically terrible remake of Thunderball, because it's the exact same movie. It's a remake of Thunderball. It's so weird.
That's wildly disappointing.
It is a complete anomaly. It's worth watching if you're a Bond fan. It is interesting because you get to see what would 1980s Sean Connery James Bond be like. And it's James Bond. It's Sean Connery as Bond. So I can see him having his nose a bit out of shape as far as the whole concept of Bond.
Got it.
During Highlander 2.
Oh, and sorry, quick shout out to Gilmore Girls, a very subtle one, because Detective Walter B. something, he's a much younger version in this 1986, but John Polito, the actor who plays him, is Frank, the guy from the pizza shop in Stars Hollow and Gilmore Girls. And
really?
That's, when Rory is trying to make the world's largest pizza for Lorelai's birthday, and she discovers that she can only make the, Tri-Counties, Tri-County area's largest pizza. That's as large as they can go. And Kirk melts his hands in the cheese or something. But yeah, the guy who runs the pizza shop, that's this detective guy who's running around with the chief. So I was just like, where have I seen that face? And I was like, wait, the only other place is Gilmore Girls. So there you go.
Yeah, this is a classic 1980s reference to, everyone hating New Jersey. That, well, because you ever get to New Jersey, Nash? Not if I can help it.
And that was almost a Schwarzenegger read right there.
It's a sword. Wise up, smart ass. I love this line. It's one of my favorite lines. Whenever the cop asks Nash if he's a faggot. Why? Are you cruising for a piece of ass? It's just so.
I'm sure in his, I'm sure there was no loss in translation there at all.
But it's in the movie at this point, and it's so hard to separate Highlander from all of the sequels and the TV shows and everything because the movie itself is so self-contained. It has a beginning, it has a middle, it has an end. When it's over with, the prize is won. Connor Macleod goes off with the girl. And it
sews itself up nicely, despite the fact that this movie's an utter train wreck.
Yeah. But yet they not only made Highlander 2, which was a horrible failure, then they made, Highlander The Final Dimension.
Good God.
Highlander The Source. They made an animated series, the TV series, starring Adrian Paul, which I loved.
Sure.
Until it's like a lot of shows. It was great until it wasn't. And they made an animated movie. I think in the end, there were 4 Macleods. There was Connor, Duncan, Quentin, and
they were like
Colin.
The Baldwins by the end of this franchise. Good Lord.
Yeah, and then Colin Macleod, who was in like the anime version of Highlander. It was very, very strange. And there are persistent rumors that they're rebooting it, that they're going to come back and they're going to make a Highlander movie. Now that I'm actually okay with that, because the movie itself, there's nothing that they can do to this movie. There is literally nothing they can do.
They can't possibly worsen it.
They can't. I mean, the movie itself is, I keep Highlander on a shelf where I keep my favorite movies and I pretend that none of the sequels exist. So there's nothing that they can do that's going to be worse than Highlander 2.
Well, and I mean, that's why, going back to the whole Nick Offerman thing, he said that he was so disappointed that Chris Pratt had never seen it. So,
Clancy Brown.
During the Parks and Recreation shooting,
Rick and Morty, by the way, the Rick and Morty connection to this movie.
Oh, God, what is it?
Do you remember the episode of Rick and Morty where they go to the planet where you can't be killed, like the big amusement park?
Oh, yeah.
The alien who is the alien who wants Jerry to kill Rick?
No.
Played by none other than Clancy Brown.
That just made my entire life so much happier.
Yeah, that alien is the Kurgan.
I'm just asking you to get on a ride with Rick, get off the ride without Rick.
Better to burn out than to fade away.
And Clancy Brown.
I love Clancy Brown. He's awesome.
He evidently had a very different view of how Kurgan should be dressed as the modern Kurgan. He wanted him to have a suit and a bowler hat. And I'm over here like, okay, Clockwork Orange, why? And apparently the reason, who, according to Mental Floss, chewed more scenery than who portrayed the scenery chewing Kurgan. Clancy Brown expressed some disappointment that the movie was opted for action beats over more philosophical exploration.
Yeah, it's weird. Clancy Brown's actually not like... it's funny because having seen this movie so many times, I just thought that's the sort of person Clancy Brown is. And as it turns out, he's not.
No,
he's really not.
Yeah, it's a sadly Brown's pleas for subtlety in Highlander went unheard. And that's hilarious coming from the guy who's wagging his tongue at nuns in a church.
I love this, though, when the hooker comes in, she goes, "I'm Candy." And he says, "Of course you are." It's so awesome. No, but actually that scene where he's freaking out the nuns. They, first of all, the way they got that church was they literally scoured. I guess they were filming in New York for those scenes. They scour New York, literally trying to find a church that is in the most financial trouble possible so that they can write them a check. And the deal is we're going to
pretty much whatever they
we
want.
want.
Yeah.
But Clancy Brown, when he finished that scene, he actually he went up to all the people and he like apologized to everybody.
Aww.
And he was like, I'm so sorry if I offended you. It was just a character. It was just a part. He was like,
that was my Mr. Jekyll in mode.
Yeah,
That's what it was.
I'm just an actor. I'm just doing a job. Please don't think that I'm that sort of a person.
Please don't assign me any Hail Marys.
Yeah.
I didn't mean any of it.
See, and they establish things in this movie that become very important in the TV series and things like that. But
like what?
Well, like the fact that they're in the church. The reason they do that is because in the movie,
they can't fight on holy ground.
They can't fight on holy ground.
No, yeah, that was established in the flashback with Sean Connery.
Yeah, but it's in the movie. It's more like it's a rule. Like we just don't do it. No matter what. But
we just respect each other's space.
Yeah.
Okay. Whereas
in the TV series, it becomes more like
the Headless Horseman literally can't ride into the church cemetery. Got it.
It's like a force of nature. You can't fight on holy ground.
Got it.
And in the series too, they expand and really get into the whole like, well, what is holy ground? To the point where I think there's a part in the series. There's an immortal who becomes a priest so he can live in a church. And no one can kill him. And he'll literally, if he leaves, he'll take holy water with him so he can put a circle around him.
Wow.
And bless the ground and make it holy ground.
That's very supernatural, where they put the demons inside the salt rings and stuff. Okay.
So the series establishes this like set of rules that they really do a good job in. I mean, the movie establishes a set of rules that in the series they do a good job of expanding and making it like make sense and stuff like that. And I would recommend to people watch the series. The only problem is that there are enough irritating characters in the series, specifically one young actor who
shall remain nameless until Jason names him.
Yeah, I can't. The character is Richie. I can't even. The only other thing I ever saw.
You know who you are.
He was on an episode of Friends.
Oh, then I know who he is.
He was the young guy that Courtney Cox slept with. And like
yes, the one who thought that gunpoint was a place. He's like, people keep getting held up at gunpoint. And I'm like, why do people go there?
That was him. That was Richie.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Beep, beep, Richie.
Yeah.
Beep, beep.
Yeah, he's so irritating.
Shout out to Adam Darby right there.
But Adrian Paul's great. And they do stuff in the series like decide, you know what, this would be a lot better if Adrian Paul was single, because then he could go out and sleep with lots of attractive women. He could have different attractive women every episode. Let's kill his love interest.
Yay.
So they just arbitrarily murder his love interest.
God.
Just we'll spice it up a little bit, But back to the movie.
Yes, we're at the bar where Brenda appears to have a drinking problem.
Yes.
Remember back in the 80s when they would just pour your drink until you said stop before there were liquor, ounce requirements in any given glass. Not that wine is a liquor. But
again, we're in New York in the 80s. And this is
before Giuliani showed up to police the streets.
This is another example of what we've talked about so many times on this show, which is this was New York in the 80s. It was every movie painted it as an absolute shithole.
Yeah, there's graffiti everywhere, the Wild West feel of just anything goes. Except for this fight scene where Kurgan finally catches up with Macleod in his white Reeboks and his trench coat. Classic look, by the way. And what's happening here? Was Macleod following Brenda, or was Brenda following Macleod? Because at one point he gets mad at her for following him.
Brenda was following him, but he knew she was following him
because he has a sixth sense as an immortal.
Well, no, that's just because he's 400 years old and he's been followed a lot. He does have a sixth sense, and again in the movie it's sort of just there, but they don't really explain it. And in the series, they get into it that immortals do sense each other when they're within a certain range.
But Brenda's not an immortal.
No, he just knew she was following.
Oh, he's just skillful enough to detect her.
But he sensed the Kurgan, the Kurgan's fighting style is great. It's just take the sword and beat the shit out of people with it.
Oh, yeah. And apparently the whole thing with Chris Lambert is that he was very dangerous with a sword. And not in the sense that you would expect where he just got really good with it. Because apparently like I said, his major role was in Tarzan, Greystoker, but in real life, Lambert is myopic and wears glasses whenever he's not filming.
Yeah.
So when he has to take off his glasses, which, contacts were a maybe back in the 80s because they only had hard lenses, I think. I don't remember when soft lenses came around, but soft lenses were all I could wear when I was a kid back in the 90s. But I think hard lenses were the best option if they even were. I'd have to look it up. But either way, so he has to take off his glasses to sword fight. And at one point, Michael Ironside sliced open Christopher Lambert's hand.
That was in the sequel.
Was it?
That's how. Yeah, Michael Ironside was in the Highlander
Okay, but
too.
either way, like it's dangerous for my.
Well, Clancy Brown almost killed Sean Connery.
Really?
In the when they shot the scene where the Kurgan,
where Heather's at the bottom and the whole like building is collapsing.
Oh yeah, it's awesome. The building's falling down, and
it's like made out of styrofoam.
Yeah. When he burst in the first time they did that take, he burst in and he just swung his sword. And I think like he hit the chandelier or something, but he almost decapitated Sean Connery.
Oh my God.
And Sean Connery apparently, got furious and stormed off set. And then he came back out later and Clancy Brown apologized and just basically said, I was really nervous and I just kind of went for it.
Sorry that I almost murdered you, man.
Yeah. And Sean Connery went and had a bottle of scotch.
Tell me that Chris Lambert doesn't look like Thomas Jane with that blonde hair. I don't know what it is.
I think Tom Jane looks like Chris Lambert.
Well, sorry.
Chris Lambert came first.
I don't care. Tom Jane is a better actor.
Well, if you ever watch Christopher Lambert in a French movie...
Oh, okay. Then it's different.
You have to remember, he's acting...
Yeah, this is not his native language.
Yeah, he's acting... which is so weird that they could sign a contract with somebody. But it's not the first... They, in Goldfinger... one of the most iconic Bond films, they hired this guy named Gert Frobe to play Goldfinger, and they'd watched these films that he did in Germany, and he was like, oh, he was so good and menacing, and oh, this guy's a perfect character, and they hired him, and he shows up on set, and only then when he's on set do they learn he doesn't speak English.
Right.
So they have to dub every single one of his lines. If you watch Goldfinger, that's not the actor's voice. That's actually dubbed.
Well, another shout out to our future episode, and I won't give away too much, but same deal with Andre the Giant, who is French. Yeah. So when he became...
Andre Le Géant.
Yeah, when he became Fezzik for The Princess Bride... Rob Reiner came up with an incredibly unique way, especially considering it was back in the 80s, to help Andre the Giant learn his lines. And I'm not going to share that story with you until we actually do The Princess Bride. So, my love, my life, Cece, we're waiting on you to reschedule. We know we had to cancel on you and we adore you. So, please tell us when you can record. We're waiting for you.
Yeah, and here we have the classic scene where everybody loved Connor MacLeod, and then he comes back from the dead, and
as Frankenstein's monster,
immediately want to kill him.
Yeah,
which is interesting too, because if they had killed him, it wouldn't have taken, and then they would have been really freaked out, and probably at some point would have tried chopping his head off.
Yeah, I was about to say it's a very 80s, and especially back when Connor MacLeod lived, taking off someone's head was pretty typical. That was pretty much the way to do it.
The castle, not in this scene, the castle where Connor MacLeod eventually lives.
With Heather.
Yeah, was actually known. I mean, that was a place where the skulls of people that the owner had killed in combat were displayed. So that was actually a castle where people used to have heads.
Does it have a name or?
It does. I don't remember it.
Probably the Isle of something.
Yeah. There's because they filmed the MacLeod village scenes. That was actually on like a tourist location, and there was a big parking lot, and they had to cover the parking lot with pitch and straw and things like that. And there was a house that was in the shot, and they actually had to build a structure around the house to make it look like an old building.
Okay.
But the funny thing was that they hired, they knew they needed a bunch of extras, so. The idea was we'll get locals, we'll pay them, £5 a day.
Pounds.
Yeah, £5 a day, with a £10 bonus if you brought your own horse.
Wow.
And the problem was
That's
that
like the car bonus these days.
yeah, well, they would shoot and then they would break for lunch, and all the Scottish extras would go to lunch, get piss ass drunk.
Yeah.
Then they would come back and film a fight sequence, and they would beat the shit out of each other. Yeah. And they literally were in the fight sequences fighting
because they make it look legit. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, it's real when they're throwing punches. They're really throwing the punches.
Oh yeah, they don't play. Kevin McKidd has talked about that. The actor from Grey's Anatomy. He was on the Queen Latifah talk show. I'm not sure if that's a thing anymore, but he was talking about back when he was a young kid in Scotland trying to make it in a band. He was like, "Oh yeah, I remember I worked at a distillery hauling barrels or something to that effect, and they would pay us in whiskey." So we're going down the Highlands, the Highland Road in this little van, and somebody's drunk driving us around. It's just Scottish people do not play when it comes to their drinking.
It's interesting in that scene that we just saw where Connor Macleod was in his sort of
Bruce Wayne apartment.
Well, I mean, he's 400 and something years old. Yeah, he's got money. Yeah, you know, he kind of is sort of a Bruce Wayne,
especially with his little Batcave museum that he's got going. It doesn't have interesting weapons, but it's got weapons, it's got artifacts, it's got everything. So he is kind of a Bruce Wayne.
And here we see Connor traded up. He got a much more attractive girl.
Yeah, this one's far less covered in mud.
Yeah, she's got fewer warts.
She comes with her own house and her own horse.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
And everything's happy, and everything's going to work out just fine for him.
Ladies, get you a man who will stick his long hair and head inside of a barrel of water and fling it all over you. It's very exciting.
And then immediately take you out somewhere with an apple, a slice of meat, and have sex with you.
Yeah, that's the dream, right, ladies?
Yeah.
Come on, get on board.
Very awkward sex that...
It doesn't include entire nakedness.
Yeah... Well,
I mean, in a field, I guess that would. Okay.
Well, the interesting thing was that if you pan the camera just to the left, underneath Connor Macleod's kilt, he's wearing blue jeans.
He can't go anywhere without his Calvins.
Because it was 1980s, and everyone had sex wearing blue jeans back then. Now here he is, the highlight of the whole movie. Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez.
The most Spanish name for the most Scottish man on the entire
who is neither Scottish nor Spanish in the movie.
I know.
He's Egyptian.
I know. Yeah. I wrote that down. I was like, literally, because with the whole Christopher Lambert not having an accent, and I understand the logistics as to why, whatever. But seriously, this Scottish Highlander guy meets another man who's supposedly Egyptian who has the most Scottish accent in the entire world.
Well,
and he's like, I thought you were from Spain. No, actually, I'm Egyptian.
I told you, I'm Egyptian. There's a little backstory that they explain some of that in I think it's in one of the books where, because Ramirez is incredibly old. He was born in I think 800 BC.
Is he a dead man?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he's not as old as the Kurgan. The Kurgan was I think the Kurgan was born in 2000 BC. I mean, it was something absurd.
Got it.
The Kurgan, he fought with Attila the Hun.
Oh,
he's been murdered.
He saw Hammurabi come across the Alps with the...
Yeah, Hannibal, sorry.
Hammurabi was eye for an eye. My bad,
I love it when a plan comes together. But it's interesting.
If you've never seen an elephant ski, then you've never been on acid.
In the scene, though, where he's in the room with all of his collection, you actually see very briefly Ramirez's cloak and hat are in that room.
I did not notice that.
And in the way that it's cut together, no one notices because it comes up you see it before you see Ramirez. So it's not significant to you.
Yeah, they don't link together. Okay.
Yeah, but it sort of gives it away
So this movie had the narcissism to assume that you were going to rewatch it.
Yeah, well, the whole movie, you got to remember Russell Mulcahy, he was a music video director. And that
makes so much sense with Queen being part. I've got
you can't not talk about Queen.
I've got to shoot down Josh a little bit because we watched this. We watched the beginning, and I was like, wow. Oh, Freddie Mercury, because I heard his voice at the very beginning of the movie, and Josh was like, "Oh no, baby, that's not Freddie Mercury. That's like a hair band that's trying to sound like Queen." And I was like,
it's totally
I've been
Queen.
With Josh. Our 5-year anniversary is coming up in about a month, so now I just know not to trust him. I don't know why I was taking his word for it. I guess because of the time we've been together. But I was like, "Oh, thanks, baby." I would have felt stupid saying that was Queen on the podcast when it wasn't. Then I did my research and took my multicolored notes like I always do, because I'm such a nerd. And then I discovered it really is Queen.
Oh, it's absolutely
so I
Queen.
cannot. I haven't talked to him yet because I haven't been home yet today, listeners. I cannot wait to go home and tease the hell out of Josh for this. So suck it, Josh.
In fact, Queen was only supposed to do one song, but they enjoyed the movie so much that, and like I think like Brian May, different members of the band sort of had scenes in the movie they liked.
Yes.
And I think like
each of them did a different song.
Yeah, like Who Wants to Live Forever? I think that was Brian May. And the soundtrack is awesome.
Yes. So Princess of the Universe, Who Wants to Live Forever, but Queen never actually released a soundtrack, especially because this movie came out at a different time in America than it did in Europe.
Yeah.
So on their album, A Kind of Magic, which they say, oh, it's a kind of magic.
Well, it's so weird because A Kind of Magic is not labeled as the soundtrack to Highlander.
No, that's what I'm saying. There was never a technical soundtrack to Highlander.
But it has clips from the movie, literally audio.
No, it does.
Yeah, it's like you hear the Kurgan in the song.
You do. 1986 album, A Kind of Magic, features several songs from the film.
Yeah,
but
great album.
With the album and the songs that they did for the actual movie, both, they rearranged how some of the songs worked out.
Yeah.
So that way it could be considered, two different projects, because like I said, that, the movie was released in America in a different time than it was in Europe. So there you go.
Yeah.
But this great scene, because this is the part where I become very literal along with your son, David. I'm like, okay, so he's swimming in the water. He can't drown. He's immortal because Sean Connery has him in a boat and he's like, I cannot swim. My friend Dr. Richard Kimball will not come to save me. And then Sean Connery knocks him over and shows him, oh, yes, you're immortal. That's great. Like, wonderful. And he can breathe underwater.
Yeah. And that's sort of, that's the sort
Swamp
of
thing.
huge inconsistency in the movie that they had to deal with in the series, which is that, okay, by being immortal, does that mean you die and then you come back? Because in that case, you would drown and then you would come back.
You would suffer that fate.
Yeah.
And it's funny because the rules seem kind of inconsistent, as they are wont to be with an 80s movie. Not just with the drowning, but with the fact that, Macleod lives through a duel in England at some point where he's upset a lord's wife, and so he's challenged to a duel to the death. And he just lets himself get stabbed over and over. And it's like it's like poking him with a toothpick. He barely notices. But then when Macleod gets stabbed with just a pocket knife by Brenda later, he's like, oh, and it's this huge dramatic thing. Whereas during the duel,
he was playing it up for the girl.
No.
Yeah, he's making it more dramatic for her.
I guess. Like, oh, you injured me. You're so strong. I bet you could beat me in an arm wrestling contest.
In the series, they have the exact same scene in the series. And I think deliberately because of that, they changed it. Because Duncan Macleod does the exact same thing with his love interest, but he shoots himself in the chest.
Oh God.
To show her, I'm immortal. I would always think it would be smarter just to like say, okay, I'm immortal. Let me preface what I'm about to do.
Explain it.
You're going to see this is going to look a little weird.
That's way less dramatic, though. You lose the drama. It's just like in Pirates of the Caribbean, where Elizabeth stabs Barbossa in the chest with a mixture of a butter knife and a steak knife. You can't really tell in that movie. But she stabs Barbossa in the chest, and then he just sort of pulls the knife out of his chest, and he's like, I'm curious. What exactly were you planning on doing after killing me?
See, and this scene right here, this is one of the things that I think set off a lot of people wondering about the origin story, because Ramirez tells Connor point blank, when there's only a few of us left, we'll feel an irresistible pull called the Gathering to come together and fight.
And that never happened. The Gathering never happened. It was...
Well, yeah. They all end up in New York. All the ones that when there's just a few of them left.
Oh, it's that loose. Okay, they can all just be in New York. Okay,
yeah, they all show up, and that's when they all, because what's his name? I can't remember. There was one immortal who was killed before the movie. In New Jersey.
Yes. Hold on.
The Polish guy. The guy that Connor kills.
And then there's Castigear.
Castigear gets killed.
Who gets killed by Kurgan.
They filmed a scene with... did they film it? I think they filmed it. There was a scene with a Japanese immortal who the Kurgan finds him, and like the Japanese guy fights him, but then basically just says, fuck it. I don't want to... I'm so tired of being alive.
Shame on my life.
I'm totally okay with being killed.
Well, okay, and that's my question. You said that the Kurgan is so much older than even Spanish, Egyptian, Scottish Sean Connery. Yeah. So my question there is, if the Kurgan is already so much stronger and the whole point is killing other Highlander / immortals that you absorb their power, why wasn't it so much easier for Kurgan to just kill Connor at the end of the movie? Because he's way... Like, if he's older than Sean Connery, then he's definitely older than Connor. Like that.
Yeah, but... It's not a question of how many people you've killed, because the Kurgan has killed a lot of just
But I thought you absorbed
people.
their power when you killed them.
Not normal people.
I'm only seeing him killing other... He's absorbing the Castigears.
Yeah.
He's absorbing a lot. He kills at least 2 other immortals before he faces off with Connor, and then he's like thousands of years older than Connor. Yeah. So how do... I don't understand.
The way it was originally supposed to end was whenever Connor chopped off the Kurgan's head.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, well,
in case you haven't watched this movie in the last 30 years.
It actually didn't kill him. He was so powerful that when he chopped his head off, there was supposed to be this whole sequence where the lightning bolts and all that stuff that normally happen would happen, but then it would sort of coalesce into some sort of like dragon with the Kurgan's armored helmet on it.
Oh.
But they couldn't afford it. So
they wasted all their money on all the other practical effects and special effects.
I mean, they had to do something like the
I'm
sequence.
not running a 70-year-old man. Sorry.
The scene here, or the scene coming up where you see the stag.
No, we just saw the stag and they've outrun him. So what was the deal with the stag too? Because it was just like, feel the stag, Connor.
Well, like, that's something that sort of gets it kind of gets brushed over, but it sort of explains why he's able to beat the Kurgan. Is Ramirez shows him like you're immortal, but if you listen, if you feel it, you can feel all of this like life energy around you.
Oh, okay.
And he can feel the stag's heart beating. Well, it's something like that, you know, and it's magic. That's why Highlander 2 sucks.
Kind of magic.
Because Highlander 2 makes it science. It's just like with Star Wars and the midichlorians and all that stuff. It ruins it.
Oh, God, yeah.
But when they filmed the sequence with the stag, the problem that they didn't realize they were going to run into was at that time of year, stags don't have horns.
No, yeah, they
so they glued horns to a stag.
God, you're not supposed to do that, people.
No, it was done under veterinary supervision.
Okay.
They had the vet.
Are you lying to me to make me feel better?
No. The vet tranquilized the stag. They supervised it. They shot it. Then they, I think the horns just fell off.
Like they would normally do anyway. But with glue, that's
Yeah.
not really incorporated.
But yeah, so it's the whole like how does it work sort of thing. This is definitely one of those movies where
it's more about the mystical than it is about the science.
Yeah,
that totally makes sense.
I mean, look, if you watch The Lost Boys, if you watch Iron Eagle or The Goonies, and you really think about it, okay,
it falls apart.
So just enjoy it.
Logic goes through these movies like a knife through butter.
Yeah.
So you have to enjoy it for what it is.
Exactly.
Especially when it comes to the sword fighting / lightsaber duels, which, Jason, you will love this practical effects.
Oh, I know how they did it.
Oh, then tell us.
In order to get the sparks flying between swords,
because CGI was not a thing back in 1986, listeners.
Right. And because actors' lives were not as valuable.
No, like in It, when they told the kids, hey, there's a bunch of rusty shit down in this sewer, don't touch anything.
Yeah. Make sure you don't get cut on
that was the safety waiver.
Yeah.
So, sorry to interrupt. How did they make these swords light up?
Well, Jason? What they would do is that you take a car battery and you hook one lead to one sword and the other lead to a different sword.
Riggs's torture device.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, that's a different movie.
Yeah.
Wolverines.
And
sorry.
So when the swords touch, as anybody knows, if you've ever had jumper cables and you rub jumper cables together, when they're plugged into the battery, you get these sparks. And so what would happen is it would complete the circuit and you would get these sparks coming off the swords. The problem is that it would also make the swords incredibly hot.
Yes, because they're what, listeners? Metal.
Yeah.
Where's Neil deGrasse Tyson when you need him?
No, but it was a cool solution to a problem. And you will notice that they don't do it terribly often. It's really in that last scene when you have the two swords slowly
We're on the Silver Cup Studios. Yeah.
And that it's cool. It's worth it.
Which the Silver Cup Studios, that was apparently the final duel between the Kurgan and Connor was supposed to happen on the Statue of Liberty. Very King Kong style, except,
Well, there was no way in God's green earth that they were going to get permission to shoot on the Statue of Liberty.
No. The reason why they didn't do it is because another movie had just done something similar. It didn't really have anything to do with permissions. It was the fact that, this movie already did it, so never mind. And they changed their minds about it. So McKay was driving from Queens to New York, or the other way around. I can't remember where Silver Cup Studios is, but he was driving and he saw Silver Cup Studios and he's like, oh, there's a good place for the duel.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's duel it.
Yeah. And it's cool because, the sign is in the movie, because it was the Silver Cup Bakery originally. That was the actual building.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And it had gone out of business years ago. And so you see the Silver Cup sign, and that's actually a real sign for when it's on location.
Got it.
But we're at the point now in the movie where everything is laid out.
Yeah, we've laid down all of our plot points that will eventually come full circle or won't until the sequels. Yeah. But either way.
Ramirez is explaining to Connor that the main bad guy is this dude named the Kurgan. He's a real asshole.
Who's the one that killed Connor in his first battle ever. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and he was going to take his head, but then he got tackled by Scotsmen.
Yeah,
and
stuff happened.
That was that.
Hey, have you ever played rugby?
No, I know. I mean, it is interesting. What does it take to stop a 4,000-year-old homicidal Superman? Apparently, two Scottish guys getting pissed off and tackling
him into a Coke truck.
Yeah.
So that's the thing.
So now that Ramirez has trained Connor,
yes, something has to go terribly wrong.
Yeah. Well, he can die now. It's like
he served his purpose.
They can only afford to have him in there for
7 days.
For 7 days.
$1 million.
And there was no way that they were going to be able to fly him to New York. They couldn't afford that. They couldn't afford to pay him for some shots in New York. So they've got to wrap everything up with Sean Connery in Scotland.
Apparently, no. The only thing that he did overseas was the voiceover.
Okay, well, I could see that.
When he was shooting in another country. So he did the voiceover when he was doing all the... remember who you are and like all that, whatever he said, and like don't lose your head and all that stuff, which was great. But it had this echoey, metallic-y thing to it because of wherever he was at the time. I can tell you but they kept it.
Yeah, but I can tell you where he was.
Oh, tell me.
He was the opening sequence when he reads the stuff that you see on the title card. It has that very echoey sound.
Yeah, the echo. Sorry.
He was recording it in a bathroom. And they played it for the producers. The producers were overseas, and they played it for the producers, but they were on the phone. So they couldn't tell that it was that quality.
That it was on his end, not theirs.
And so it's like, oh, this sounds great. Yeah, keep it. Perfect. Done. And then,
it just worked.
Then they get it, and it's like, oh, shit.
Oh, this is still in there.
Well, we're stuck with it, so let's do it. And nobody had a copy of Adobe Audition to, throw some de-echo on there.
Nobody could do the bumpers that we do these days.
Exactly. No, so we've gotten to the point where
and I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Kurgan is like whispering and like biting on Connery's ear right before he kills him. I just couldn't help but make a note about that. I was like, God, his mouth is like all over Sean Connery's ear.
See, now I think that Sean Connery, if Ramirez wanted to live, he could take a dive off that tower.
Yeah, he easily could have.
Yeah, he easily could. I think
it's a very Obi-Wan Kenobi moment where he's like, I hope you're paying attention right now. Except here's the problem with that theory.
Yeah,
Connor's nowhere nearby.
Yeah, I think basically Ramirez had been alive for, a couple thousand years. He was tired of being alive. He trained Connor, told him about the Kurgan, because he even says to, when the Kurgan breaks in and, and says, Ramirez, where is the Highlander?
Yeah.
He's like, you're too late. I've prepared him for you.
Yeah.
You waste your time. And then,
well, because I mean, Ramirez could have been focused.
I just love it. And then the Kurgan just takes a dive straight off the tower.
Yeah.
Like he can't have his little moment of joy.
Nope. And then he's got as we find out later in the movie, he's got
hello, pretty.
Ugh. He enjoys saying that before raping
Yeah,
women.
yeah.
That's like his signature move.
Oh, you've got a much bigger wheelie than Connor does.
Oh, Mr. Drysdale. But
and then back to New York with
No,
Russell Nash.
But Kurgan, oh my God, he's so slurpy with his tongue. I can't. Ugh.
There's a whole backstory with Connor as Russell Nash. There's a whole backstory with his assistant because in the movie,
Yes, we haven't even touched on that with Rachel. Yes.
Yeah, with Rachel, where there was this. The idea was that he met Rachel when she was a little girl and like saved her.
Yeah, he does that in the movie.
And well, but then the relationship goes from him being like her father to him being like her older brother to him being her lover and then basically being married. And then she's like the only woman who has accepted the fact that she's going to get old, but he isn't. And so she just steps into the background and takes on this mother role for him.
Weird.
And it's like she's, it's an interesting idea because no woman in his life has ever been able to accept the fact that you're going to get old and die. I'm not.
Yeah.
But she's like, okay, that's how it is.
That's
I can
our
deal
dynamic.
with that. Yeah,
that's our version of normal. And because at first she strikes you as this very Alfred and Bruce Wayne relationship where she's the Alfred because she's visibly older than he is.
Right,
But then you come to find that he saved her in what, World War I or II?
It was World War II.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there was a German shooting at someone, so I
think it was.
couldn't tell which World War it was.
I don't remember. I'm pretty sure it was World War. Yeah, because she's not old enough to have been.
Oh yeah, she's living in the 80s. Okay,
Yeah,
that makes sense. And she's an old lady in the 80s. Okay, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, math. Who knew? But anyway, yeah, so he saves her. Oh, and we're at this point now. But they have a very Brad Pitt, Kirsten Dunst relationship going on from Interview with a Vampire.
Yeah.
Because not that he immortalizes her, but still, they just have a very strange dynamic where their ages just don't matter.
Right.
They seem to evolve properly according to what you just said, but you don't get all of that backstory in this. All you see is she's his assistant initially when she's visibly much older than he is. But then you flash back to World War II where she's a little girl. Her entire family was slaughtered by Nazis. And then he picks her up to rescue her. Gets supposedly killed by the Gestapo and then turns around and shuts the Gestapo down.
Yeah, and it's interesting because he meets her, and in the first moment that he meets her, she finds out he's immortal. So that's another thing about the dynamic.
Yeah, they couldn't really hide that.
Yeah, there was no like, well, I saw you get shot. I know you died.
He kind of does, though, in a little kid way, because he gives her some suspension of disbelief because he picks her up and runs away with her. A Nazi shoots him fatally. And then she's like, oh, you're not dead. And he goes, it's a kind of magic, wink.
Yeah.
And, that's just their dynamic. Because even when he goes off to battle Kurgan for the final time, she's like, oh, this is the last time I'm ever going to see Mr. Nash, isn't it? And he's like, yeah, it's a kind of magic.
Yeah.
And then that was the one moment where the two moments that I connected. I was like, oh, that's kind of sweet. Like,
yeah, and I do love the fact that he doesn't even hesitate. He just kills the guy. He's whatever, Jack. You're the master race.
I'm all right with being called a Nazi. Think before you talk shit. But yeah, it just. I don't know. I love his dynamic with Rachel. I think it's really sweet.
See, and that's the thing about the movie that, again, even in a bad 80s movie, there's still all this subtext and the movie itself was actually based on, I don't remember who it was, the writer, I'm drawing a blank. It was actually his master's thesis.
Yeah. I have that.
Yeah, and he sold it for, according to the internet, I've seen some places on the internet where they say he got 200,000. I've seen some people say he got 500,000. I don't have a clue.
I don't have the actual amount, but it was a college kid's senior thesis. Gregory Wyden was attending UCLA as a film student in 1982 when he was asked to write a feature-length screenplay as his final project in order to pass a theater class. So recalling a trip he took to a London armory, Wyden wrote the script about an immortal named Macleod who could only die via beheading. Another immortal, the sadistic Kurgan, wanted Macleod's head in order to claim the mysterious prize promised to the last of their kind. With encouragement from his instructor, Wyden sent the script to 6 agents, one of whom got it sold.
Yeah.
So I don't know what they sold it for, but Wyden's senior thesis made it done. So thank you, Mental Floss, for all of these fun facts.
Yeah, that was one of the things they told us in screenwriting class in film school. And it was like the Highlander script for student screenwriters is like the gold. Because it's like, my God, he wrote a script.
That could happen to me.
That could happen to me. I could send it to an agent. Somebody will pay me $200,000. And no, it's not going to happen to you.
And listeners, that being said, we might be working on bigger and better projects all the time. So you never know. With hindsight is horrifying.
Yes.
Stay tuned. That's all we can tell you for right now.
I do love this little sort of Roger Moore-esque James Bond scene here.
Yes,
where he's walking through Rachel's house and he just finds the tape recorder and
right away too.
He knows exactly where her gun is.
Like he knows where Brenda's tape recorder is, where the gun is. It's like how he knew she was following him. He just has a sixth sense about these things.
And that's sort of the thing. Like, again, going back to the TV series,
she can't be the first person who's tried to do this to him in 400 plus years or however long he's been alive. So
the fun thing in the TV series is that Duncan is Connor's cousin, and he's like 100 years younger than Connor. And so in the first episode, which is the only episode in the series where Christopher Lambert is in it.
Okay.
It's fun because, Duncan Macleod is, like 300 years old, and Connor just sort of treats him like a little kid because you're 100 years younger than me, dude. Like I'm older than you.
Well, think of all the age arguments we've had in this studio
exactly.
as of late. And our gaps aren't even that significant.
Do you know who played the bad guy in the first episode of Highlander, the TV series?
Of course not. I'm not seeing it.
Okay. They really wanted to pick someone who was a lot like the Kurgan.
Okay.
And so they got a very big dude who was an actor. He was a TV actor.
Oh, no.
He was bald, but when he was introduced to most TV audiences, he was bald. In this, he actually had a full head of hair and a beard. Primarily played a comedic role in a very popular NBC sitcom in the 80s.
I need one more hint. Don't tell me outright.
Okay.
Oh, I'm so close though.
He wore a uniform in the TV series, and someone made a puppet of him in the TV series.
Oh my God.
And
Franklin.
No. It's a show we've done. It's a TV series that we have done, and we've talked about this actor.
Harry Anderson.
No.
Who wouldn't make a puppet of Harry Anderson?
Yeah, we need someone like the Kurgan. Get Harry Anderson. But you're close.
I'm close with Harry Anderson.
Extremely close.
So Night Court.
Who else in?
The lawyer guy. Now I'm just confused.
Bull Shannon.
Oh.
Yeah, it was Richard Mall played the
I would not have thought of Bull.
guy.
I was thinking about, what's his face, the one who's always jumping the ladies.
Yeah, no, not John Larroquette.
That one. No. That's who I was thinking.
In Highlander, the TV series, the first episode, you get Connor Macleod and Richard Mall as the bad guy.
Oh my God.
And it's pretty craptacular. It's worth a watch. Yeah, it's worth a watch. Richard Mall does the best with what he's given. But
I love it.
But no, the scene.
Oh, Tom Jane shot right there. I'm serious. I see Tom Jane every time Chris Lambert turns around. I'm sorry.
You're going to shoot me with the 45?
I'm immortal.
I'm not looking for a killer. I'm looking for a sword. And, maybe some bigger earrings.
I'm looking for a guy.
Because these earrings aren't nearly big enough.
No,
I need bigger earrings, damn you.
They don't quite reach my shoulder pads.
I know, they're so close to her shoulder pads.
They are.
I couldn't even imagine having things dangling like that off the side of my head. It would drive me nuts.
It hurts. If you can imagine people who do the gauges these days, it's not terrible. No. It's not terribly dissimilar in the sense that like the more added weight to an earring, the more it's going to stretch out your earlobe. That's science.
That's You're
Neil
not getting
deGrasse
around
Tyson
that.
will back me up on that one. But seriously, that's why big earrings had to sort of scale back or they had to be
They
made
were
out
injuring people.
Yeah. Or, a woman could turn around fast enough, she'd slap you with her big sprayed hair and her earring, and then you die.
Yeah.
So that was why the 80s really ended, listeners. It really had nothing to do with time so much as, fatal fashion.
Yeah. Now, of course, we have this conflict arising with Connor where he's having feelings for this woman, but he's remembering the fact that he didn't take Ramirez's advice the first time and just leave her, because, and it is kind of selfish on his part because, she's going to grow old and watch him stay the same age. And that, imagine being in a relationship where you just keep getting older and the person you're with stays, about 30.
Well, what's really sad about that is that it reminded me of Twilight because that
is sad.
No,
That is
because
sad.
here's the thing is that Meg from our Hercules episode handed me the first book of that series to read when we were in college before the movies existed, listeners. And she said, hey, and she's one of the few people who can hand me something and say, hey, watch this and or read this, and I'll actually do it. She has that kind of influence over my existence. So she handed me the first Twilight. She was like, it's about this teenage vampire and he falls in love with another teenager. And I was like, this sounds horrendous.
Skip to the end.
No, but that's the whole premise in that is that, the vampire boy doesn't want to turn the normal teenage girl into a vampire because
selfish bastard.
No, he's trying to be selfless, and she's like, but watch me grow old and you won't find me attractive anymore. And he's just like, no, I'll still love you because you're you.
Yeah, but that's gross when I'm 70.
Yeah, just a tad.
Yeah.
So there were discrepancies.
I like older women.
Or indiscrepancies.
I'm waiting until you're 50.
I have Demi Moore syndrome, but in reverse. Oh, so that's every guy ever. All guys like younger ladies. So never mind. That's not even a syndrome with you guys.
No, we like older ladies. There's two men. There's the Epsteins and,
I was about to say.
And then the rest of us.
There's definitely y'all have your preferences in both directions.
This movie has possibly the makeup people who do a good job throughout the entire movie.
Who make Heather look like Carol Kane.
Yeah, they do possibly the worst job ever aging an actress.
Ron Lillian.
Yeah, I mean, she looks... It's so obviously a young woman with old lady makeup.
No, it is.
On.
It's literally young Carol Kane. That's all it is.
Yeah. And, in truth, I mean, Connor probably wasn't being that selfish.
Well, and to be fair, she probably died at 40.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Her
So
life
she's not
expectancy
that
was
old.
probably just a few more years
Back
down
in the 1400s, no, better yet, she's probably only like 5 years older than he is, to be perfectly fair.
Yeah.
Because this is the 1500s, we said. So, yeah.
No, 1400s.
1400s?
Yeah, it's 1400s.
Okay. Oh, yeah, you're right. 15th century. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, my bad. So, anyway, yeah, Connor's like maybe... Because he was 21 or so when he died, because he was in his first battle ever.
Yeah, he was
20 or 21.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's maybe 30. Which makes us 31-year-olds look supremely horrible.
Yeah. So,
and the fact that she hasn't died of a fever or dysentery by now by trying to cross a river.
Well, or the fact that, I've always thought that if you were in a relationship with an immortal, your life expectancy would drop because of the fact that because they're immortal,
all their enemies are coming after you.
Yeah, well,
like
and also
Spider-Man.
too, they're going to be a little less risk averse than the average spouse. So the chances of them exposing you to oh, is that chicken undercooked? Hell, what do I care?
Well, that was already a thing back
got
then.
Salmonella.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like salmonella, it wasn't even a thing back then. So yeah, she was going to die. She died at the ripe old age of 30. Which, bringing up the Flintstones from 1994, your favorite movie ever. Not John Candy. God.
John Goodman.
John Goodman, thank you. The other John. He was eating this huge brontosaurus leg, and Rick Moranis is like, you can't eat like that forever. And he's like, oh, yeah, whatever. My dad ate red meat every single day of his life. He died at the ripe old age of 38.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, there's a different perspective.
There is.
I know I was talking to my writing buddy about if we were going to do a
was his name Adam?
Yes, his name is Adam.
Oh my God.
About doing a sequel to Highlander. This was years ago. And the idea would be, what would happen if you did Highlander and it was in the future when people had also just sort of figured out immortality? And so it wasn't nearly as big a deal that you
And
were
they're
an
like,
immortal.
yeah, so.
Yeah, and so you've got, and here we go.
If you take our heads off, we die too.
Yeah, here's Castigear.
Yep.
Who,
we see Castigear for the first time.
Yeah, and very quickly, Castigear is here.
Yeah, he literally has 2 scenes
Yeah.
and he's toast.
Yeah, it's basically establishing, that the big Highlander convention is happening.
It's a very Han Solo, Lando Calrissian moment because they meet on a bridge in New York and they look like they're going to draw on each other and it's all serious. But then Castigear has a flask.
Yeah.
Yay. Old buddy.
Because I guess when you're an immortal, I mean...
Does liquor affect you when you're an immortal?
That's a question. There was a scene where Castigear and Connor went out and they got shit-faced. And they actually were drinking with one of the cops. They ran into like one of the detectives, and they basically hang out and just drink and get shit faced with this detective.
That's a Saturday night for me, guys.
But it was cut, and the sad thing is that unlike a lot of other movies where you can have the 50th anniversary release and have all the deleted scenes and everything, most of the deleted scenes from this movie were actually destroyed in a fire. And so they
weren't immortal.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
Or their heads were removed and set fire.
See, exactly. If you burn them, if an immortal is standing in a place where a nuclear explosion happens and they're vaporized, does that count as having your head chopped off?
That depends, because then we get into a whole Star Trekian level of, do you really?
I love this scene where
he's doing the Englishman's duel.
Yeah, but he's drunk off his ass.
Oh yeah. Oh, maybe that's why he didn't feel it. And his wig is like.
So this. Oh, you got me.
Well, this vaguely reminds me of The Princess Bride, and where Count Rugen is just stabbing Inigo Montoya over and over, and it's just like a knife through butter. Dramatic music, stab. Dramatic music, stab. And
you missed him, Mr. Bassett.
Yeah. Oh, and the gayest duel ever, because the nobleman's assistant keeps kissing him on the hand and on the mouth.
Yeah, well, he's a French, he's a French lackey to some, douchey.
No,
French
but
nobleman.
not like cheek, kiss,
I know.
Like, hey, like kissing him full on the mouth. It's kind of weird.
I apologize for calling your wife a bloated warthog, and I bid you good day.
People call me that on a regular basis. I don't
now,
get up in a tizzy
in the back of the head, shoot him.
Shoot him.
And then he shoots the guy.
He shoots his assistant.
Yeah, he shoots his assistant.
Yeah, so he loses to Highlander.
Yeah.
And then shoots his assistant for daring to suggest an actual suggestion that might kill the Highlander.
Yeah, shoots him in the back while he's running away.
That's a coward's way out right there.
Actually shoots him in the ass, but, he's
maybe he enjoyed it based on the activity we saw previous to this.
Yeah, that might be. And we're getting closer to the church scene.
Church scene.
And you can see in this shot here, you can tell the Russell Mulcahy music video influence because it's shot on a super
it's a nice
wide
day for a white wedding.
Yeah, we got this super wide lens distorting everything but the Kurgan. It's totally not motivated by anything. There's no. It serves the story in no way at all.
Zero. It is literally the Mr. Joshua and Riggs scene of this movie.
They said, hey, let's do this one on this lens. Okay.
Let's just try it.
Yeah, let's just do that,
In the 80s, that was considered experimentation.
Well, it's, again, if it was like something weird was going on with the Kurgan and there was like magic stuff happening, but it's not. He's just terrorizing everybody.
Well, what's really funny to me, so like answer this question for me, Jason, because you seem to have so much more knowledge about the Highlander universe than I do. So the Kurgan is staying at this Fleabag motel, whereas Highlander has got a Bruce Wayne level existence. So Kurgan's been alive for thousands of years more. What the hell is his financial plan? What's going on with this guy? Versus why does Mr. Nash have a better life?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because the Kurgan presumably had time to amass a huge fortune.
401ks came along a while back, Kurgan. Get on it.
And I think that probably it's one of those things that in no way, shape, or form supports the story or influences the story. It's just a decision that they made to show him as being
the bad guy.
The bad guy. Yeah. I mean, I think you could probably say that the Kurgan was so focused on just going out and raping and killing that he literally didn't care.
He never really amassed physical wealth. Yeah.
And also there's the other side of the argument is that Well, he's probably lived in palaces. He's lived in mansions. He's lived in. It's like,
and he
to
doesn't
him that,
matter.
Yeah, it's like, who gives a shit about that? It's time for the gathering.
The
it's
trappings
time,
don't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I need someplace I can lay low and hunt down all these other immortals and get the prize.
Especially if he's not
And
super
that's it.
obvious.
Yeah.
Like, while he doesn't, and if he's dressed like
Although
a street rat while doing it.
he does go out of his way to be as obvious as possible.
Especially okay, that's what really cracks me out, because right now we're in the Castigar scene, so let's pay that the respect that it's due. This random, what is he, a Navy SEAL? Who is this guy?
I think he's a Marine.
He's a Marine. Okay, yeah. He's got a semi-automatic weapon,
or he's got the trappings of a Marine. He might just be a nut job who really likes the Marines.
There you go. But he lights up the Kurgan.
Yeah,
with so many bullets. Would kill any other man. If he had actually just shot across the neck a couple of times, the Kurgan would not have been an issue.
I don't know. I mean, would it have taken the head clean off?
You gotta wonder.
That's the question, You
gotta wonder.
But I mean, either way, he fails and gets the crap killed out of him.
No, he doesn't.
Well,
what's really funny is that Castigan gets killed, an immortal gets killed, but a regular...
But he gets a sword stuck through him all the way, though.
No, that's what... Okay,
yeah.
So...
that hurts so bad.
Shout out to my dear...
Oh, that hurts so bad.
Shout out to one of my dearest friends, Amanda, who is a chiropractor and a genius. Seeing Josh and I play this game at home where when somebody gets injured in any capacity, we're like, oh, Amanda could fix that. And in this instance, I was like, oh, just a longsword went through all of your guts and your spinal column.
Yeah.
Amanda probably couldn't fix that.
Let's catalog the things that are now destroyed in him. His
stomach. At least one of his kidneys.
At least one of his kidneys. Probably his liver, his spine.
Just his spine alone is enough. I mean,
I do like that Castigar was polite enough to wait until he was finished with that guy before...
unleashing his power.
Yeah.
It's very Ghostbusters. The box gets released, but wait until it's the most dramatic time.
This is sort of a Ghostbusters scene. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's all the lights in New York.
It looks like a Ghostbusters scene.
Meanwhile, I'm messing up their names now. Kurgan is holding up his sword and absorbing the power of Castigar.
See, and that's one thing they did in the series where they sort of standardized what it looks like when you kill an immortal. In the movie, every single time they kill an immortal, you get totally different special effects. Sometimes you get cars exploding. Sometimes you get manhole covers exploding and flying off.
Yeah, it makes it... Well, it's like the vampires dying
up.
in Lost Boys. The rules are not the same
exactly.
from vampire to vampire, from immortal to immortal.
Yeah.
So,
if they made Lost Boys the series, please don't.
No.
Please, for God's sake, don't do it.
Kiefer, I know you're alive, but do something different. We'll write something for you, Kiefer. Won't we, Jason?
Yeah, we will, but I don't have the ability to drive a dump truck full of money up to his house, which is what somebody would do.
Josh can drive the dump truck if somebody has the money.
I love he just pulls the old guys. This is my favorite scene with the Kurgan because he pulls the old guy out of the car and
leaves the old lady.
And then he leaves the old lady and
she's giving him such strong side eye. No, he seriously wags his tongue at like everybody.
And he just drives away with her.
And then there's somebody on top of the car like Batman.
Yeah, and that dude yells, "Where are you going with my car?"
No, I pointed that out to Josh. I was like, no, my wife. No, not that. Now, where are you going with my wife? Where are you going with my car?
Yeah.
God.
So the movie does a surprisingly good job of holding together. It doesn't go off the rails at any point. The narrative of the story stays.
It does calm itself down.
Yeah,
you're right.
It doesn't just go shit-face crazy and,
it's not just action, deflate like a bad cake. So, yeah. No, that's only... But this one scene, though, doesn't make sense. I see what you're saying when they're trying to calm it down and they go back to the detectives. And they're like, okay, the Kurgan person? What would happen? Normal civilian? I mean, Marine guy. And... despite the fact that he's been impaled through most of his organs and his spinal column, is surprisingly mobile in his VA bed.
Yeah.
Like leaping up and shaking his arms.
He's not bruised.
He's not immobilized in any way, shape, or form. I'm like, this guy would be paralyzed at least from the waist down. Come on.
There is no way that this guy lived.
There's no way you live.
But he had to, though. Because
to provide exposition for the cops.
He had to tell the cops, no, it wasn't this guy Nash, it was somebody else. Which
Are
is
you sure that's not this picture that I really want it to be so I can sew up this case? Nope, it's somebody else. Yeah.
No, so it is.
Oh, but there's
is that the pizza guy?
Joe, no, it's not Joe though. He's definitely from Gilmore Girls, and it's not Joe. Joe is the guy with the big fro who delivers the pizzas. This is the guy who owns the pizza shop in Stars Hollow, the one in the checkered, or not checkered. That's the window pattern, but the blue suit behind
this scene always confused me.
Captain. Why?
Because it just cuts to him all of a sudden, like you can't hear what the guy's saying, and he's screaming something.
He's reenacting what happened to him when he was attacked.
Yeah, but it's so weird that they do that because they cut away, you can't hear him, and then they cut back to the cops sort of nodding like that was really significant, what I heard.
Oh, I see.
And it's like, wait, what actually did he just say to them?
And somebody sent that Marine a lovely fruit basket. You don't know. Yeah. You don't know. There's one orange.
Yeah.
There's
his
one.
Mom. His mom.
There can only be one.
Or maybe it was, Headhunter 3, Cop 0. Meanwhile, a giant bat terrorizes Gotham,
Spider-Man terrorizes Manhattan.
Yeah. What does incompetent mean?
Oh my God.
I love this guy.
What's a live sex act?
Yeah. I just love he's reading out to the cops, just
That's
totally
such a condescending joke.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, I'm serving you
what
a hot
does
dog.
Baffled mean?
Can you explain this article, Mr. Policeman?
And now we have what was the solution to many mysteries in the 1980s, a trip to the library, where you can get lost in the world of periodicals and books.
I'm sorry. Did you say library?
Yes, the library.
What is this library you speak of?
I know, it's sad.
My God.
It's sad.
Remember back in the day when your teachers just said, do some damn research.
Yeah.
And that just translated to go to the library.
And I love that she gets the birth certificates.
Yes, of Mr. Nash.
Yeah, Mr. Nash.
Brenda.
Yeah.
She does some digging into Connor McLeod's actual identity. He's going under I don't remember his first name, but something Nash, where he's like an antiques dealer or something. But come to find that the actual Mr. Nash died at birth.
Yeah.
Because he was a bastard and his mother gave birth to him. She died in birth and he died a few minutes after. So,
yeah.
But they make a point of saying, oh, so he wasn't legitimate. And I'm just like, cool. This is 2019 where adoptions and marriages of same sex are a thing. So thanks for that offensive rhetoric.
Well,
that's great.
and she also uses a computer.
A computer?
To analyze
like
his
they say on
signatures.
Kimmy Schmidt?
Yeah, to analyze his signatures on these property deeds. And of course, there's the 80s computer nerd. Because everyone in the 80s who knew how to use a computer looked like that guy.
Yeah, there was only one guy. It's the same guy.
Yeah, it's the same guy. Yeah.
They just trimmed his mustache just so to make him look a little bit different.
But she clues into the fact that this guy Nash has been around for a while.
No, not Nash. Well, Connor's been around for the while under the guise.
Yeah.
He basically takes the identity of dead babies once a lifetime. He dies about once every 60 to whatever years, and then finds a dead baby whose identity he can assume, which it wouldn't work in 2019.
So what you got here, Brenda, is a guy who's been creeping around since at least 1700. Now I'm
pretending to croak every once in a while.
Now I'm gonna go eat my lunch. I'm dropping.
My mother made me a ham and cheese like she does every day.
I'm dropping this on you, and then I'm leaving. I am out of the movie at this point.
This is a huge discovery, Brenda, but I'm not going to help you. And suddenly I don't have a crush on you like every nerd usually does with the investigative journalist.
Have you seen this man that looks nothing at all like Clancy Brown? Hey, that's Andre the Giant. Get him! Now here we have the infamous church scene.
Yes. Church scene,
which this is, of course, the scene where the Kurgan is very rude to people in the church.
Including some nuns, listeners.
But Clancy Brown then subsequently apologized to everybody because he didn't want people to be offended. And which is
good on Clancy Brown.
Yeah, it's a pretty dope move,
Oh, okay. And sorry to interrupt. But so Connor is lighting a candle for Heather, who, this is her dying wish, which... when Heather does die and Connor buries her in the foothills of the Highlands, she makes him promise to light a candle on her birthday every day, which back in the 1500s, birthdays weren't a thing. Your parents didn't care about that. You didn't have birthday parties back or
Yeah.
in the 1400s.
Yeah.
Anyways, it just seems so random to me that her dying wish was, my love, light a candle for me on my birthday once a year. And I was like, that's what every dying wife wants. Not go off and be happy. Go off and live your life, White Fang.
Well, I
just
think,
light a damn candle.
Yeah, I love how the Kurgan just comes in and just puts out all the candles.
It's
Just
such
like
a
he's such an asshole. You know, it's like, I know you're the bad guy, but do you have to be such a dick?
He's got such a Lost Boys vibe, though.
Oh, yeah.
I know this is before Lost Boys, but
yeah,
all the leather.
except that if he met the Lost Boys, all the Lost Boys would immediately weep and cry.
Because he's the one that raped them earlier in the childhood.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hello, boys.
With the God, the tongue action in this movie is just frightening.
Better to burn out
Tom
than
Jane
to fade
profile.
away.
Oh, God, yeah.
Which was ad-libbed.
Oh, and I love this part here where the Kurgan,
He
he
just
goes bald.
yeah.
No, this is his excuse. He says, well, I thought I'd be in disguise. And it's like, cool, because stark bald, you don't look any more disturbing or noticeable.
He is so crazy. I mean, he's got clothespins hanging from the scar around his neck.
Like you do.
And he's not just bald. You can tell he just took a knife out and just started chopping.
Oh, yeah.
Happy Halloween, ladies.
Those are not razor. Oh, yeah. The tongue lapping at people. Just.
Yeah.
And what's hilarious is that those probably aren't actual nuns, but the fact that he apologized to them regardless.
I think
they may have been. Oh, because they would have had to have. It's just like when you find firefighters and policemen.
Yeah.
People with the actual uniforms. Okay, that makes sense. So, yeah. If he apologized to them, they were probably actual nuns. God, I need to look that up. That's going to bother me.
Knees. I took his head and raped his woman.
Oh, no, because you don't know this.
Right,
Connor's the only one who doesn't really realize that Heather was raped by the Kurgan way back in the day. And there's two different schools of thoughts on this with both ladies and gentlemen. And so Josh was like, wait a minute. You didn't know your woman was raped? And I was like, yeah, I kind of agree with that. But then I had to think, with Josh, I would, if something happened to me, I would tell him right away. Because according to Pam Beesly, that would have been the ass whooping of the century. But with other men, it's like, do you sort of spoil your image of yourself if you tell them that you got attacked? Like that.
And
that's
also, what if you told Josh, but the person that you were telling him about was a 9-foot-tall homicidal maniac who had just killed the dude who taught Josh how to fight?
Have you met Josh?
No, that's not the point. Heather knew that the Kurgan would kill Connor.
Yes.
And
no,
so she's not going to say anything because
I was trying to keep it on a lighthearted side because I brought up this very serious topic. But but that's an insult to your man in and of itself. Because if you know your man's going to get killed by the dude who attacked you, that's hard to deal with right there for your guy. That's a double insult to your guy. The fact that you were attacked and he wasn't there to protect you. Plus the fact that you assumed that he couldn't exact revenge for you.
Right.
That's tough.
Well,
but now Connor finds out. So now, that's it. That's it. He's in because he's been on the fence about this whole gathering thing. He doesn't really want to be.
Yeah, he really doesn't.
He doesn't want to take the prize.
Yeah,
he doesn't want to be
the
the only one.
Yeah.
But he doesn't want to die either. So, I mean, that's what should separate him. And that takes me back to Sean Connery, too, because there's this epic amount of foreshadowing in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
There can be only one. That not just the Kurgan says that, but Sean Connery. There can be only one. Like, we get it.
The Kurgan licks the priest's
Licks
hand.
the priest's hand. Yeah, it's a nice day to kill the Kurgan.
He is playing the hell out of this part.
No,
I have something to say.
He's chewing the shit out of the scene, but he's acting his heart out.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, I can't really diss it, but
he's awesome in this movie.
No, he's
Clancy
great.
Brown is incredible.
It's just so much.
He is to this movie what Rutger Hauer is to Blade Runner.
Damn.
Yeah.
Oh, R.I.P. Speaking of which,
we
haven't
Rutger
talked
Hauer.
about our boy Rutger Hauer.
I know, so sad.
Yes.
Because that dude was awesome. Because he could play the psychotic, evil replicant. But
he did sort of a blend of those good guy, psychotic guy things on True Blood, actually.
Yeah.
That was one of the last roles I saw him in. Not one of the last roles that he was in, necessarily, but he was Sookie's grandfather on that. on
And
that
here,
show.
here we
But
go.
anyway, here we go. So now
it's
it's
the big moment where he reveals to Brenda that he is immortal, and he does it in the most logical way possible by killing himself.
taking her to the bat lair.
Yeah. Boy, imagine the stuff that's in that room, though.
I know. Jason, this is actually what I imagine your workshop at your house looking like, which I still have yet to see.
It's what I'm going for.
All of your models and your Ghostbuster laser packs. Like, I have to see it before
and
I die.
I love that it's a round room with the sunken conversation pit. You know,
yeah.
it's just that is cool.
That's the pimpinest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But he's run out of room already.
He has.
It was obviously a huge room, but he's got to expand. Maybe that's why he really decided.
Ramirez's coat is hanging behind him.
Oh, okay.
I think his hat is there too.
Oh.
So he kept. Well, I mean, he has Ramirez's sword.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because he also had his own sword. Yeah. See, there's the peacock, the aged peacock feathers.
Yeah, from Ramirez's coat.
Yeah, and there's the hat.
Oh, I see it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Damn, I did not catch that when I watched it last night.
To be honest with you, I watched the movie about 1,000 times before I noticed.
No,
it was
that's
there.
fair. That's like in everything in Pirates of the Caribbean. I'm like, see that? See this? See that?
Oh, no,
And
he
people are
was
like,
born in the 16th century. He was born in 1518, not 1418.
oh, we've been
My
messing up our
apologies to
timeline.
the 16th century.
All of our apologies to
Right.
math in general.
We
We're
just
terrible
lost
at it.
all of our audience from the 16th century.
Oh, sorry, guys. Immortal or not, we know you're listening.
Yeah. Or time travelers.
As long as we haven't lost you Australians, we are.
No, they're still
on
sticking
it.
with us.
I know, we love them so much.
They're looking at the Kurgan going, well, that palmy bastard. I'd punch his head off.
It would be very easy for you guys. We all know that you were born with superhero powers.
Yeah, probably the only country that the Kurgan never went to was Australia.
He knows better.
Because he knew he'd get his ass kicked.
That's the actual holy ground. That's why nobody fights there.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll hand you your head and your ass. And,
Bostas, it's Canadian.
Yeah, so now it's like, oh my God, you are immortal. Let's have sex.
I just stabbed you in the chest. Please make love to me.
Wait, I have to get my blue jeans.
Nothing comes between me and my Calvins.
I mean, phrasing. I wonder if at the time...
I think you mean nothing arrives between me and my Calvins.
I wonder if, like, because as a kid, I was like, does denim have some sort of, like, was that like a condom in the 80s? Did they not invent condoms till
And then
after
you got a
blue
little bit
jeans?
older and arrived that it's the exact opposite.
Yeah, yeah. And oh, there we go. Bit of
This
boob.
is a pretty graphic
It is.
love
Yeah,
scene,
it is.
considering it's 1986.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, I think by this point, it's like, well, we've already, desecrated.
Oh, she's got her hand like, or
Yeah,
he's got his hand like.
It's like, no, God, please tell me that's not her.
Sorry.
all these years.
Margaret Thatcher naked on a cold day. His ass better not be as smooth as hers.
There's symbolism. The lions.
The lions in a cage.
Symbolizing something.
Which I don't.
It doesn't serve the plot at all.
Because, ladies, let me ask you: after a night of passionate lovemaking with an immortal, don't you want to go to the zoo?
I mean, what else is there?
Than to watch other powerful beasts rail against their cages?
Yeah, I mean, well, I've slept with an immortal. I guess zoo. Yeah, it works. Either that or a movie.
But back in the 80s when the animals could actually reach between the bars.
Yeah. So they're in love now.
Yeah.
They're madly in love.
I don't know that they are though, because she's like, don't lose your head. Mwah, and then just leaves.
See ya.
Layers. That was a great night. And then he's like, wait. He even looks over his shoulder like, hold on.
Yeah. Like, and then of course we have to have the
She lives in the hotel from The Shining.
Yeah.
With all the red carpet.
I love that he's got
Hello, pretty. Sorry, I just became It the clown.
And he's eating a lolly or a popsicle.
Yeah.
Just he was standing there looking like the Kurgan eating a popsicle.
Like
Whoever put that popsicle in his hand is a genius.
Oh, yeah.
Who needs an Academy Award.
Must have been the guy who decided that whoever drove or piloted the helicopter.
Oh, we're back in music
weapon.
video mode.
Oh, yeah. All the fog.
Yeah.
Inexplicably.
The red lights.
The red lights.
The funky limbs.
The dead lights, Georgie. But yeah, the red lights, the fog, just the general funk, and then this crazy ass non-chase scene
Have you
where
ever played chicken?
and the Kurgan just sort of
No, I learned the piano. What?
This movie? It could have been a
joke.
This movie is like an hour and 56 minutes long.
Yeah,
it could have been 56 minutes shorter.
And remember, they cut a lot of it out.
Yes, they did. And it still could have been shorter.
Which is super impressive because it was such a low budget movie and they managed to film so much. On two continents.
Well, when you're talking about two continents, that probably ate up a lot of the budget. But when they started they could only stick to practical effects, just like in Ghostbusters with the spinning spray-painted peanut.
See,
when those were your only options, the options were cheap because you had to get innovative on a budget regardless.
The Russell Mulcahy's the first guy. Yep, that was him. The first guy who gets hit by the car was the director.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He Ron Howarded his way into his own film.
But, the funny thing about the whole movie is that you've got the Kurgan who's obsessed with getting the prize.
Yes.
And the catch with the prize is that in the end...
It sucks.
Well, you're mortal again.
You're mortal... But you're connected to every other mortal on the planet. Their thoughts, their intentions. Yeah, you can
hear all their thoughts and everything.
God, I would want to kill myself.
Yeah.
But at least that's your release if that's what you really need. Yeah. Because, I can't. He knows all the presidents. He knows all their thoughts, the diplomats, the whatever. But you're weighed under this horrendous weight where you're like, but I guess I shouldn't clock out because I could help mankind.
Yeah, but I guess if you're the Kurgan, it's like, okay, you have this power now, but...
It's like Robin Williams or Tim Curry gaining the prize.
Well, it's almost like, look, this guy's been alive for 4,000 years. I think if you make him mortal, he's going to be dead in a week.
He and everyone else, because what worth does he have on life after 4,000 years?
No, nothing.
Like 400 years?
It's a big joke to him.
Yeah.
It's all just a joke.
That's why he's taking Connor's woman around and just playing chicken with her life in a car, taking her in the bike lane on a bridge, going the wrong way.
Silver Cup Studios.
Yep. And she passes out because the car chase is just too much.
Oh,
Mr. Drysdale.
Well, and the other thing with the prize, too, is that, okay, you can have kids and you're mortal
Which
again.
Some of us don't want.
Yeah, but it's almost like... Was that the message they were going for? Is that really we all think we want immortality, but really what we want is to just be normal again. And if you live long enough, you're just going to want to be normal again. And look at the size of that answering machine.
It's roughly the size of my car.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty impressive, and it probably only cost $2,000 back then.
Only, and they're really only used for, what does Rick and Morty say? They really don't use it for exposition these days, anyway, Jerry. So we're just going to float you the cost of it. Answering machine rentals. But the one other tender moment to me in this entire movie is Nash, aka Macleod, saying goodbye to Rachel.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's a kind of magic where she just, and what's baller is that he is, and listeners, if you can hear that, it's about to storm something fierce in Alpharetta, Georgia. But so we're gonna try and cut it a little bit close. We're toward the end. But so we have this tender scene with Rachel and Nash, and she's like, Mr. Nash isn't coming back, is he? And he's actually left everything to her.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
She gets everything he's got. So, even if he wins, he's not coming back. Russell Nash will die tonight.
But see, that's my question then he must just be incredible with money, because in 400 years, he manages to... acclimatize his way to like a wealthy, unless he only finds wealthy babies who died, which doesn't make sense because how many bastard babies that die within a minute and a half of their life really have anything to leave behind?
I don't think so. Yeah. I think it's more a question of he takes their identity, then transfers all the money from the last person into a bank account under the next.
Not if he's leaving it to the Rachels. Well, maybe he accumulated it and then left everything.
Yeah, I think Rachel's the first one he ever left anything to. I think his view is that all of this is over tonight. Yeah. One way or the other.
He probably assumed that he was going to be the one to die.
Yeah.
Which, in all honesty, makes sense because he's so much younger. He's the Rocky. He's going to lose. But wait, spoiler alert, he doesn't.
Yeah. Because he's the good guy. He's the hero. He's,
Which in the 80s, that was just kind of obligatory. We didn't really have the bad guy winning or the bad guy. We didn't really have a neutral ending either. Yeah. Kind of like in Harry Potter. Like my friend, I'll give a shout out to my other friend, Katie. She lives up in Canada. She got very angry with me for calling Harry Potter before the last book came out. Because I made the mistake of being smart enough to be an AP Lit in high school. And I was like, well, there's a balance to literature, right? And I was 17 years old. So there's a balance to literature. You can have supreme good and supreme evil, or neither.
Yeah.
That means that Harry and Voldemort both have to die. Right? And she goes, oh my God, Harry's going to die. I was like, not necessarily. That just means that Voldemort might not die.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh my God, no. She was like, no, Harry's going to die. I hate you. I hate you. I hate you so much. And I was like, I don't know. The book isn't even out yet. Then the book came out. And guess what? Harry technically died for like 5 minutes.
Well, and you know, there's so many archetypical stories. You know, you can have it where it's
The Matrix.
Well, yeah, there's, you know, the hero's journey, which it's funny because like looking at this movie, it really doesn't fit into there isn't a
It's
hero
so all over the place.
Yeah, there's no like, you know, Russell Nash or Connor McLeod
Same guy.
He doesn't grow as a character.
No.
You know, you could kind of argue that he changes because he gets the prize and he falls in love with Brenda, you know, who, of course...
But he just falls into the same pattern that he was in before. Like, he didn't listen to it. It's not like his mentor's advice really changed his path because his mentor said, leave Heather behind. You're only going to hurt. It's only going to be terrible for both you and her. Leave her behind.
Yeah.
Spare her that. No, Connor didn't. He stayed with her until she died.
Yeah.
And then... once Connor's mortal and he can have children and stuff, and now that it's, you know, kosher, I guess, he stays with Brenda.
Yeah.
So now he can have kids and fulfill his life, and that's fine. But kids were the only thing that was really missing from his first relationship, besides the lack of aging together. It doesn't really change who he is as a person.
It doesn't. And it's another reason why making a sequel to this movie was a bad idea.
Yeah.
Because...
especially with car batteries and water.
Yeah.
Oh, and Josh had to point this out. He was like, yeah, the roof is flooding because we all know roofs of major cities don't have drainage.
Right, yeah.
I was like, you're the one who didn't recognize Freddie Mercury at the beginning of the movie, so I don't know what to tell you.
This whole ending is just a music video.
It so is.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing is just a straight up
It's
1980s MTV music video.
And it's that mixed with Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's such a lightsaber battle, especially since Kurgan has his shaved head going on, like the Emperor / Darth Vader with the helmet taken off. It's just a whole thing.
Yeah, and it's, you know, when you really think about it too, I mean, in reality, the guy with the big ass sword versus the guy with the katana, if they're both good with their weapons, the guy with the big ass sword is going to win.
Yeah, because the big ass sword gets one hit, and that's all it takes.
Yeah.
It'll go through the guy and the sword at the same time.
Yeah, it's, you know, you know, but again, it's a movie and it's fun, you know.
Right.
But the problem I have with this, the biggest decision that I think was just a terrible decision in this movie was in the last scene, which is coming up momentarily, when Connor McLeod kills the Kurgan. Yeah. And you have the whole big sequence where, you know, he says, there can be only one. Here we are. We're in that scene
this
right now.
very fake fall scene.
Yeah. They decided that they were going to pick up Connor McLeod. They were going to...
on wires. Like, he's rolling rocks down to save rock and roll, Gene.
But the problem is that they decided to conceal the wires will animate lightning like it's coming down and hitting him. And it basically just... highlights the fact that there are wires there.
Josh was like, baby, can you see the wires? I was like, you don't need to ruin this movie. I was like, you can't ruin this movie for me, honey. I was like, I'd never seen it as a kid. You're not hurting my feelings.
Yeah,
like, make fun of it. I don't care.
You absolutely cannot not see the wires, and it totally ruins the scene.
Let me give a shout out to Brenda. Despite how badly thought out that move was, she attacks the Kurgan with a metal pipe while she watches her man fighting for their lives. And that's cool.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, most women, even Buttercup and all.
What kept you? Ha, ha, ha.
I've got my thoughts on Buttercup when we get to the Princess Bride, but Buttercup was useless in the fire swamp. So, but then Brenda, is like, I might as well smack this guy with something that I can find.
She's not Kim Basinger in Batman.
Oh, God.
You know, you think she's Kim Basinger from Batman because she does the exact same thing the entire movie, which is basically Scream.
Well, and since I saw this movie after I saw Spider-Man 2 with Tobey Maguire, Kirsten Dunst does the same thing. When Dr. Octopus is trying to tear Tobey Maguire apart, She comes up and tries to defend him. Dr. Octopus catches her before she can do it, but at least she's making herself freaking useful.
Yeah.
Come on, ladies. If you got a superhero man, sometimes he's got a moment
There we
where
go.
he
Look
needs
at those
a breather.
sparks.
Oh, those battery sparks.
Now, this scene, I do love this scene because this is where you can see the fact
the swordplay that Peter Diamond was involved in this movie.
Yeah, they actually taught, and the Kurgan salutes Connor and goes in, and it's
When literally, like, the only other scene you see this in detail is when the Kurgan parks at his cheap-ass motel and starts swinging his longsword around, assembling it, and, like, doing the poses and saluting and doing all that stuff. And then, in the end, you see it, and that's it. Yeah. Peter Diamond, I know, was the stunt coordinator, so it's not, you're seeing his work even when you don't realize it.
Yeah.
Which, and Jason, you might find this most interesting. Peter Diamond is the guy in Star Wars.
Yeah.
When Luke is sort of passed out when he's chasing R2-D2 through the sand dunes, and
boom, there it is.
Oh, the sliced open throat.
And wait for it. Classic delayed head fall off.
Reaches out.
And he smiles.
Leans forward, but yet his head tilts back, and his energy starts seeping out of his neck.
Yeah. See, this is the scene where that was supposed to turn into a giant dragon.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. Because it was the whole thing was that you kill him, you know, like he chops his head off, but that wasn't enough to kill the Kurgan.
Yeah, because he's
so
been around
powerful.
for so many more years
Here
than
we go.
you have.
Music
dude.
video, push in.
Do you really want to live forever? Oh, sorry. Wrong movie.
There can be only one.
And then all the glass blows
Everything
out.
blows up.
The second most expensive shot of the scene, or of the movie.
Fuck yeah. That's Highlander.
I'm surprised his head didn't get taken off with all that glass.
Yeah, that's true. That would have been really ironic. There can be only one. Flunk. Oh.
Now there's none.
Yeah, and,
There isn't.
And here we go.
The prize is that some lessons are not worth doing.
And yep. Look at the wires. It's so horrible. Now, I do like the idea that it's almost like he's being attacked by all the other...
the other energies that have been killed in the fight.
Yeah, it's like all the evil Highlanders and all the good Highlanders. It's supposed to be like their ghosts fighting each other.
Yeah, it's symbolic,
around him.
sure.
Yeah. But it really just ends up looking like a Megadeth video.
No, it really just looks like when Bob took Gene to the planetarium and he's rolling the rock to save rock and roll, Gene. Like, whatever.
Oh my God.
No, but
there's the wires.
There's the wire.
There are the wires.
Yeah, see it?
Yeah,
but Peter
did
Diamond,
a terrible job.
To bring him back up, the stunt choreographer, he was the Tusken Raider.
Yeah.
In episode 4, when Luke wakes up from being passed out in the sand dunes, the dude who raises a stick above his head, who's like,
See, that's the part I want. I just want a little tiny
I want to be
part.
that guy,
I just want a little tiny part.
But Peter Diamond was the stunt coordinator for this whole movie. He's a legend.
And so
Thus
he's won.
ends.
Yeah, and there we go. And now, of course, we have, one last little scene where he explains blah, blah, blah. And the totally random RAF fighter that flies over that at the very end, there's a plane that flies over.
Over Scotland?
Yeah, in Scotland.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it's like there, and they were supposed to be just a random...
They're in the Star Wars universe now.
Yeah, just well, he might be flying the Jedi Transition, which
you don't
for
know.
pilot, well, the British version of it.
No. You know who that probably is, given the fact that they're in Scotland. This is probably Ewan McGregor's brother, who's in the Royal Air Force, which I know it's not called that anymore, but...
Yeah, it is.
Is it?
Yeah, RAF.
Oh, okay, you got mad at me during The Mummy when I said the Royal Air Force.
No, because back then it was called the Royal Flying Corps.
Okay. Well, in the movie, they still called it the Royal Air Force. Either way, in real life, Ewan McGregor's brother is part of the Royal Air Force, and his nickname is Obi-2 Kenobi.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is great. But yeah, so, the Highlander has a nice flashback to his whole life.
And he hears Ramirez talking to him in the present, too, where he's like, you've done well.
Don't lose your head.
And so, it has this nice little wrap up where he's gotten the prize, he's got the girl, he's got this... Obi-Wan Kenobi connection with Ramirez, it all just sort of worked out really nice. Let's ruin it with a sequel.
I get to die and have children and live the life now that I've always wanted.
Yeah. I get to be constipated and get diarrhea like everybody else. Wait, why did I want to do this?
Why did you want to have
I
kids?
didn't. I didn't want to do any of this.
Yeah, being immortal seemed so much more badass.
Yeah,
but
and there we go. That is
that was Highlander.
Highlander.
So, Jason, why did you pick this god-awful movie?
It's a movie that from the time I was a kid, I just absolutely loved because it's for the same reason. You know, like when I was a kid, I loved Iron Eagle. I loved The Goonies. I loved, and it's interesting because on the Alf to Seinfeld scale,
I was going to ask.
Even as a kid, I recognized that it wasn't a very good movie.
Yeah.
But I just loved it and enjoyed it. And today I watch it.
Well, as a kid, we've talked about this. Special effects, your suspension of disbelief comes so much more easily to you when you're a little kid. And that's okay. Yeah. And movies affect you on an emotional level much differently when you're younger.
Oh, yeah.
Than they do when you're older.
Yeah.
Because you go in with all these defenses and fisticuffs, like ready to be like, oh, I can battle this with logic, whatever. But as a kid,
you're just like, whoa, they're fighting with swords in modern day New York. That's so badass, you know?
Oh, yeah. Like even in Lion King, and not that the animation in Lion King has.
Yeah, but it is. But yeah.
No. It's not lessened at all. But it's like, oh my God, watch those animals fighting each other. Like close up. That's great. And that's just one of the movies that I grew up with.
Yeah, so I would put it pretty high personally for me because of the fact that it was always a cheesy cult movie.
Sure. That
I enjoyed, and it's still a cheesy cult movie I enjoy. I enjoy it for the same reasons today, honestly, that I do. It's not even like other movies where now I enjoy it for totally different reasons. No, I enjoy it for the exact same reasons I did when I was 13.
Yeah, because it hits you on that same emotional level. Yeah. Like I'm the same way with Pirates of the Caribbean, which we have to do if nothing than for my emotional health. But I love that movie so much, and it's one of the last movies I remember seeing because I would have been about like that range. You said you lose that by about 15 at the latest.
Yeah.
And I would have been about 14 when Pirates of the Caribbean, the first one, Curse of the Black Pearl, came out, and that movie just enchanted me and still does to this day. And to that end, all the sequels that came out, nobody could say a bad word against them that I didn't I've got a defense for it. Whatever. I don't care. I love them all. They're magnificent. So I'm glad that it still scales. So where did you say it scales?
I would keep it at about an 8 for me because I still feel, I mean, it hasn't gotten better.
It hasn't gotten worse,
but it hasn't gotten worse either. Which, it's still, in my opinion, or maybe I don't know. Does that make it a 5? It's not better.
No, don't change it because of that. Like let that remain your emotional scale because that's the whole point of Alf to Seinfeld. Yeah. There's not supposed to be a science to it. It's how you feel about it.
I stick with an 8.
All right. Given the fact that I first saw this movie yesterday as an adult, quote unquote adult, I'm going to give it a solid 4.
That's fair. That's totally fair.
Because it was what it was.
Yes.
And it was exciting. Again,
it's sort of like, what was the movie? There was a movie I watched not too long ago. It was a movie what was it? It was an 80s. Well, okay, I'll give you an example of something that we've done, which is It, which I really didn't watch when I was a kid. So I didn't have
young Adam.
Yeah, so I didn't have the kid emotion associated with it. Mm-hmm. So it was just a crappy movie.
Yeah.
And, it's like, well, it's a totally different experience. And on that note, I am going to say that we have discussed Highlander long enough. And Darth, do you have any closing?
It was fun, actually, considering the fact that it was the first movie that I've seen since Death Race that I actually had never watched before watching this before recording the podcast with you. So that was exciting, especially since it was a surprise to me that I hadn't watched it.
Wait till we do Baron Munchausen.
Oh God!
You
I haven't seen.
You haven't seen anything yet.
I'm planning to be incapacitated for that particular recording.
Yeah, you might need to be.
We'll see. Yeah. Well, not the recording, but the viewing of the movie at the very least, because Meg's claiming up and down, listeners, and she will be reappearing for those of you who love her. Katie, I know that you've requested Meg's presence again, and she is coming back. So, Meg, we are looking forward to seeing you again. We've also got some more exciting episodes. I need to stop telling you what order they'll appear in because life inevitably happens, so I'm going to stop doing that. But we've got some exciting episodes coming up, including Ferris Bueller, Aladdin, Lost Boys, and Randy's episode of Animaniacs.
Yes.
And
unless
the Battle Royale, episode 1.
Well, unless you're listening to this in a different sequence, in which case those have already come out.
Yeah, they've all come out along with the episode 2 of Young Adam's It. So we've got a bunch of new stuff coming out for you guys, and stuff that we're always going to tease you about, but not really give you any details about. That's the whole fun of teasing.
And check out the website. We've posted our first blog post, and more of those are to come. Yes,
Darth has some thoughts, so join us for our blog posts at hindsightishorrifying.com. Our email doesn't exist anymore. We don't believe in email. That's old man and lady
Get
stuff.
us on Instagram. It's easier.
Get us on the Insta. We're Hindsight is Horrifying on Instagram. Or if you still believe in Twitter, you can find us at Hindsight Horror. Or you can find me personally at Darth_Jader_.
Yeah, and you can find me on Twitter or Instagram at NorthFoggy.
Yes. So, listeners, we appreciate you taking time out of your day, especially as long as our podcast episodes are, to listen to our nonsense. Until next time, we love you or hate you, depending on which country you come from. Until next time, this has been Darth Jader.
And Jason Mitchell.
Good night.